My name is Jonathan Lampley. I am a national program specialist with the Urban and Community Forestry staff with U.S. Forest Service. Today we're coming live virtually here after the African American Mayors Association with our special guest that we have in front of us today, Mayor Cantrell. Mayor Cantrell, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much. So, my name is LaToya Cantrell, and I serve as the 62nd mayor of the city of New Orleans.
Awesome. Mayor Cantrell, thank you so much for joining today. Today, why are we here? We're here today to talk briefly about the urban and community forestry investments that have been made through the Inflation Reduction Act to the city of New Orleans. The city of New Orleans received some $8 million for tree planting, workforce development, community engagement to address extreme heat. And we're just so excited for this partnership with the city. And as we move forward, I have several questions that I would just like to ask. How has urban forestry been integrated into your city's overall strategy to combat rising temperatures and extreme heat?
Well, this is where I would say the rubber really meets the road in regards to partnerships and a city that really relies on federal partners to help us meet our people where they are here on the ground. And it is getting hotter in the deep south, hotter in the city of New Orleans. And scientists, as we know, reported that the summer of 2023 was the hottest summer in 2,000 years for the Northern Hemisphere. That is something that is alarming, but it also focuses on the need for real action. And so this partnership with the youth, with the urban forestry, again, it's action. And it really will allow us to deal with climate that has already changed. And New Orleans is on the front lines of climate change. So it really is about adapting. So the urban heat islands, are definitely something that are intensifying here in our city. We have extensive concrete and asphalt surfaces, limited tree cover, and concentrated human activities, and particularly our city being one that is, we have a large population of our people who live at or below the poverty line. We have a large population of our people that are, I would say, in need of more green and canopy throughout the city of New Orleans. And the city just faces an array of environmental challenges, increasing stronger hurricanes, even the rates of rain, soil subsidence, coastal erosion. We're losing a football field of water a day off our coastline, and of course, extreme heat. And my first time as mayor, and really the history of this city, was having to sign an emergency declaration in 22 because of extreme heat. And we know that in terms of mitigating, we need a stronger tree canopy. And so urban reforestation is a top priority. It is embedded in our climate action plan that was updated in 2022. And we just haven't stopped really focusing on those priorities. And that is absolutely focused on our carbon footprint. And our citywide action plan calls for planting 40,000 trees in our city by 2030. And so it's game time right now. And this $8 million investment in the city of New Orleans will allow for us to go right to work. And we're leveraging these dollars with bond fund money that we've activated as a city. So again, this is in the spirit of partnership. And we know that the Department of Park and Parkways annually distributes grant funding of $250,000 to local community partners to help us plant trees. So I just want you to know that we're looking at this in terms of a point of leverage, all resources, and the Inflation Reduction Act has really allowed this city to implement again, as I stated, our climate action plan, because we're telling our people we can't wait. And so, again, with us going after these grant dollars and then being awarded the money, we're not waiting to implement, we're ready to implement. So, we planted over 11,000 trees so far, and our goal, again, is to not only continue to plant these trees, but it is also to educate our public, educate the community on how these trees will calm down, I would say, the heat in key areas, in neighborhoods where our people are, where our children play, but also how we live with water. So, this is a force multiplier. So, it's not just calming the heat, but it's also allowing these trees to serve as a point in our system to collect water, hold that water, which frees the water up from going right into our drains. And so this is also flood mitigation in terms of how we're implementing here in New Orleans, but also focusing on our workforce. Again, green infrastructure is jobs for the future, but jobs because the future is right now. So we're able to groom and train workforce, connecting our people to real jobs, and of course, working with our DBE community, our small businesses, making sure that they're connected to this this activity in our plans relative to implementing our climate action plan. And also just native trees, our nurseries throughout our region. So, again, it's just a force multiplier in terms of how the USDA and urban forestry has really allowed the city to implement, but bring our people along, because this is something that is going to be ongoing for years to come, but we got to bring our people along as we do the work.
Man, Cantrell, you just mentioned several things that I just have to touch on. The time is now. We don't have time to wait for a lot of these issues because, as history has shown us, things are not changing themselves. It is up to us. It is up to the stewards of the land, the cities, the mayors, the citizens of these communities to act now, Mayor Cantrell. And that's one thing you just mentioned during that answer you provided. And I just love to hear the enthusiasm as well in your voice talking about leverage and partnership. And one other piece you just really touched on too was the work that we're doing in our disadvantaged communities. These communities that we're working in, American Trail, are some of the most under-resourced, underserved communities in the country. I think we can go to say, and some of the work that we're doing here, we're able to leave a mark and a footprint on some communities, American Trail, that have never received this level of investment. And I hear it in your tone. I hope you hear it in mine. I'm so excited to see the individual lives that we can impact through these investments that we're making into these communities. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Here, just a couple more questions, Mayor Cantrell. What are some of the key challenges or barriers faced by communities of color in accessing and benefiting from urban forestry?
Well, just low income communities, Black and Brown communities, our children, our elderly, just have historically been left out of the decision making process. And you kind of touched on this. And despite their significant risk, relative to climate that has already changed, and it just it exacerbates just the impacts on these community and our people, just those who are socially and economically disadvantaged. And the inequalities, you can't make them up, they're real. And so, trees, we know, are parameters of wealth. New Orleans overall landscape, we have a mere of 18.5% in terms of canopy coverage and a reflection of its 25% poverty rate. So it kind of, when you look at those numbers, it really speaks to why the time is now, but why the federal government is working with mayors on the ground to really focus on these communities of color. Also, just the environmental injustices due to historical discrimination. We know housing practices and the like, and we're continuing just to push through and to kind of rewrite wrongs of the past. And in 2022, I wanted to mention that our local community organization sustaining our urban landscape, SOUL, that's the acronym, they developed the New Orleans reforestation plan. And so, again, we can't do this work alone, meaning government. So, you need your external partners like SOUL. And what they did with this reforestation plan, it's in addition to the city's updated climate action plan. So both call for 10% of our canopy coverage in 10 years in all of our neighborhoods, and again, to ensure equity. And we also look at implementing equitable urban reforestation, our strategy to the city in terms of available tools like GIS, based tree inventory, the tree equity score tool that was published by the American Forest and the USDA maps of disenfranchised communities. So we've been able to layer the data sets across the city um, and really identify where the needs are, but also where the priorities are. Because while we're implementing, we want to really get to where the needs are the greatest and not start where some areas are better off, if you will. And so these are just, some strategies, but we want to maintain that the trees on public property, that's important, as well as the community buy-in, which is critical, which is why a key component relative to our reforestation needs to be the outreach and the education, because we have to bring people along. And this is just how we're going to do it as best we can.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm so excited to see this next cohort and generation of natural resource professionals, arborists, urban foresters that we're training in real time with these investments that are being made in the city right now. So, lastly, how does the city engage? You just touched on this some, but how does the city engage with local communities to ensure their voices are heard in the planning and decision making process related to urban forestry?
We just go where people are, like speaking directly to the residents. We found is the best way that we can just adequately address just the environmental existing conditions and or challenges that exist in the neighborhoods and at the neighborhood level. The greatest experts of any given community, the world's greatest experts are the people who live in their neighborhood. Like that's what grew, I know, out of Hurricane Katrina, but definitely something that we believe now looking at 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, the world's greatest experts are the people who live in their neighborhoods and the experts on their neighborhood. But in 2019, I would have to say that my administration really worked with the Greater New Orleans Foundation. We also worked with the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice in terms of working with community leaders to release a report that was called Taking Steps Together on Equity and Climate Change. Because we found, again, you have to work with the people who are going to be impacted the most, but also the people who are going to be your first responders, and your neighbors are your first responders to anything that touches your community. But this really just charts a path for how the city can equitably just implement our climate action plan. And every step towards implementation, it is needing to bring our people along. And I cannot just overstate that enough. Um, just you may not get everyone every time, but every outreach component is a step in the right direction, because you really are bringing folks along, and then they can start to talk about how these investments have impacted their daily quality of life. I also wanted to mention the $250,000 tree planting grant from Park and Parkways once again. And it really helped to form lasting partnerships with the local community. Again, being out there working with them, even providing trees that the community can get and take home and plant. So it's just these ways that we can build the trust. I think that's necessary, but it's an all like hands on deck um, uh, focus because government, we cannot do it alone. And it requires partnerships, not just with the federal or state governments, but with the people who are our greatest assets.
Mayor Cantrell, you've touched on every point that I could have thought about today. The community aspect, the planning, to see all the amazing work that New Orleans has had going on prior to these investments, and to see how these investments will just take you on into the future, into the right direction. I'm just so grateful for our conversation today, Mayor Cantrell. You've been an amazing guest today, and I'm looking forward to visiting the city in the next few years to see how these local investments are making those huge impacts on those communities that need these resources the most. So I
Thank
just want
you.
to tell you here, I really appreciate the partnership that the U.S. Forest Service and the city of New Orleans has. And I look forward to all those wonderful things in the future. Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you. And I just needed to add to give you a thank you just on behalf of the African American Mayors Association. You know, you all met us where we were. You did. You know, you came to our annual convening. You spoke with us directly. You mentioned that the match, that could have been an issue for cities like the city of New Orleans, but our urban communities, that these matches were waived. So we didn't have to come up with something like that was huge. And then also making sure that cities receive the resources directly. So again, I just appreciate that you've taken like lessons learned and working with mayors and working with AMA because you've met us where we are because we're on the ground every day trying to meet the needs of our residents, no matter who they are or who they love. We're trying to keep them cool, and an urban canopy, we know will do just that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.